Right. Welcome to Module 3. And then we'll be talking about cyber threats. Before that, just a recap. Yesterday, we talked about different targets, vulnerabilities, and impacts. We also go to the different parts of the web, the surface, the deep, and the dark web, the infrastructure that we have to protect. Okay. Um, what else? And yep, and then the HVAC, which is another security risk. Okay. So now we'll move on to cyber threats and try to again um, categorize and figure out the different types of threats. So as part of our again day to day, we check the news. Okay. So in the news, linguists teamed up with computer scientists to spot trends on cybercrime forums. Let's check that out. So, the summary of this article is basically using machine learning, right, and linguists as well to apply natural language processing. If anyone is into machine learning, this is one of the common knowledge that you have to know. Okay, so what they basically do is they use this weighted log odds ratio, right? Uh, it's another natural
听
language
讲了，
processing based method, right?
能退吗？还
So again, with this machine learning technology, right, it could pick out trends in discussion on underground cybercrime forums. So basically, this is one of the things that let's say an investigator could do, right? If they want to check out different forums and maybe check out patterns on conversations about cybercrime. Okay. In the other news, SharkCop, it's a Google Chrome extension. It uses machine learning again to detect phishing URL. So, as we all know, Chrome extensions are on the browser for applications for your Chrome browser, right? There are different tools that you can install to again enhance your experience with the browser. You could basically add a timer, right? You can have, let's say, a debugger for React, right? And so on and so forth. So this Chrome extension helps you detect phishing in the URL here. Okay, so again, not only do um, the bad hackers, advances in their technology, but also as for the other side, who are the good hackers, or again, the people who try to increase security. And they would always say the cyber attack and cyber defense is a cat and mouse game, right? So let's say the cyber attackers discovered a new powerful weapon, then the cyber defense team would now increase their defenses, right, and catch up. And usually, once the cyber defense team caught up, right, then the cyber attack team would look for another ways to exploit. Okay, so these are just some short news. You can go back. So for the outcomes, we evaluate basic foundations again. It's one of the when you say this outcome, it it's kind of repeating because it's still part of the overall topic, right? So we can, I guess, skip this. Let's see. Mm, describe various. Okay. So for the objectives, I can just make this shorter where we're gonna discuss more about threats. Okay. So in cyber threats, we will cover various types of threats, right? Um, individuals and organizations basically encounter or face many types of threats, right? There's different kinds of attacks and different kinds of motivation on why they are doing it, right? And for why they would want to do it because of the benefit, right? And also the risk for them doing so. Okay. So some concepts that we encountered in the textbook, such as threat source or sponsor, it's basically a person or organization that wishes to benefit from attacking an information asset. Think of it as like a business owner or a CEO, right? And throwing money at someone so that that someone would accept that illegal contract to maybe attack their intended person or organization, right? So again, some hackers do have their like boss or owners that they were just hired to do so, right? Next is threat actors or agents. These are individuals or group who actually execute the cyber attack. So again, these are the hackers themselves. Threat actions. This describes the actual attack and is often not a single isolated event, right? It's just not a one time thing attack. Most of the time, it's multiple step and it's a well laid out plan. Okay. And also could be from multiple events that happen before that last event. So that's why it says it can consist of many discrete activities, meaning not known or hidden, involving surveillance. Surveillance is like you're watching people, but in this case, you could be watching the system, right? Initial activities, testing, and final attacks. The next is the threat analysis. It describes the process of understanding the level of threat. As we mentioned before, in risk assessment, we should know how much of an impact would this vulnerability give the organization, and then act accordingly, meaning invest resource wisely and not on everything. So threat vectors or attack vectors, right, are tools, techniques, and mechanism by which an attacker conducts the attack on their target. When we say attack vector, we can simply say like entry points, right? Let's say your computer can have an attack vector on the browser, could also have an attack vendor on the applications you install, right? Also, the hardware can be an attack vector if it can be easily accessed physically, right? Threat consequences or impact, it's already the word impact, right? What are the effects? So, for cyber threats, let's say hacker goals, right? Hackers usually need three things to accomplish their goal. The first one is motive, right? For them, there must be a reason, right? A reason to do the cyber attack. It could be money, which is most of the time, revenge, and sometimes because their ego is being affected, meaning someone is maybe um, maybe saying that they're um, not superior, right? Next is maybe to make a political statement. They're against the government, right? And again, five, simply to be a nuisance, right? If you watch Batman, like Batman's enemy, the Joker, it's the same. The Joker just wanna create chaos, right? Still, it's a motivation. It's not nothing. I just wanna do it. No, it's I wanna do it because I wanna do damage, right? I wanna cause chaos. The second thing they need is the means. When say the means is basically the method, right? The attacker must possess a minimum level of skill in order to mount a successful attack, right? Again, you couldn't have a hacker who doesn't know anything about computers. At least the hacker should know the computer operating systems, browsers, networks, right? And everything else related to the cyberspace, right? The third thing that they need is method. Sorry, I mentioned means. Means is basically the skills. Method, a more experienced attacker will develop a plan for their attack. So method is basically laying out a plan, right? This may require an interim break-in followed by extended periods of reconnaissance, right? Reconnaissance is going to some place and basically doing surveillance, right? Before the real attack takes place. Reconnaissance is somewhat similar to surveillance, but in reconnaissance, right? The difference for that is, let me hold on. So, yep. So reconnaissance is all about gathering intelligence, right? And surveillance is just monitoring behavior to gather intelligence. And reconnaissance is gathering intelligence from the field, okay? One is from the field and one is just monitoring the behavior. Okay, so let's do this quick exercise as we've done yesterday. Um, Quickly do research and discuss an example of a motive, mean, and method. So, as a practice, in one sentence, uh, think of why a hacker would do it, right? What skill would the hacker have, and what would his plan be, right? And again, if you missed out on mean or method, it's totally fine. You can just think of like what the motives are, or maybe think of what the skills are, right? So we'll go back to the chat and I'll start this, discuss a motive, a mean, and a method. And I'll start mine. A motive can be a statement that the government. Okay, I'll, so everyone knows to go to the chat. So I'll give you guys 10 minutes to complete this one. Okay, we started getting some answers here. So the first one is investigate illegal activities of the company, find out and expose. Cool. Yep. Need to master server related activities, firewall attack and defense, and virus implantation technology. Yep. Another thing that you would want to learn is maybe which malware to use. Yep. And also know which industry in, because again, per industry they would have different products or applications that they're using. The next one is obtain information of enterprise database. Yes, SQL. So you can use SQL or SQL to do SQL injection for unsecured um, forms in websites or in the URL. Make a statement about religion. Need to master relevant knowledge. And when you want to make a statement about a religion, another thing that you might think is you have to understand the religion and make it believable, right? So attack the religion infrastructure and the theft of money from organizations. Mm. Next is listen to other people's phone recording. Correct. Definitely have to have knowledge of communication equipment and method. Hack through mobile phone base station. Uh, might be harder to hack the the cellular tower. Might be easier if you maybe have an equipment that can intercept in the middle, right? Hacking into personal computer networks, know users' internet habit, method through malware. Yep, there could be a malware that uh, basically logs all the user inputs in the computer. This is a good motivation by Carl. It's like the hacker would just want to prove, right, that he's better than the government education organization. That's a valid motive. Investigate and master the person in charge. That's another good way to attack, right? Who you now try to uh, do some reconnaissance, right? To check who has the most access to the organization system. And that's the person that you may want to target, right? They need a little bit reward for their interest. Okay. Steal password, try to invade and find loopholes. Could be this is from Ralph. This motivation could be similar to a good hacker participating maybe to a bug bounty program, something like that. Place ad during the use of web page and get them to click. Okay. Okay. Click by mistake. Yep, I've encountered ads where they would have a pop up, right? And there's an X button. And when I click that, it doesn't really close the ad. It puts you in a different web page. Aim to cause damage. Yes, people have done this because it's a device. If it's a device, it's something that can be hacked. This method might not be. Control the resource. Okay. Store the medicine. Okay. But this is less of a cyber attack, I would say. Industrial control system. This is very, very true. The ICS is usually very vulnerable to attacks, right? And most of the big manufacturing or organizations have ICS that if you can hack it, you can sabotage or render the company or the plant unusable. Protest against event, okay. Escaping after they rob a bank. Okay, this is a cool motive. This is uh after a crime, right? They basically planned their escape through doing another cyber crime, right? Sounds like a movie. Okay. Still celebrity social software release dynamic. I don't understand release dynamic. Okay. Okay. Mm, a young man who lost his parents to the white police as a child. Wow, this is a big. Oh, because you played Watchdog. Yeah, it's a cool hacker game, and I think there's Watchdog 2 and 3. Was there 3 already? Yeah, and Watchdog shows you that you can literally hack anything as long as you have the right access, right, or have the right tools. Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. We can move back to the lecture. There you go, Legion. I was about to buy Watchdog, but again, as you get older, you do have limited time. So there are times the games I just watch a let's play, and other times, yes, I do buy. Okay. Thank you everyone for the good discussion, and let's head back. Do we head back first or okay? Maybe this is a good time to do some Muddiest Point, and after that, let's take a break after the Muddiest Point. So, a good question for Alan. I think non-repudiation, there's no such thing as no, uh, is a little bit muddy word. Yes, it needs to it needs some getting used to because it's not a usual English to use, even for normal English speakers, right? So you can also associate when someone asks you what is non-repudiation. You can basically use the following, right? One is you can't deny what you've said. There's no taking back, right? Second one is adds a different perspective for cryptography. Again, proof of integrity, proof of origin, right? With high assurance of authenticity, right? So making sure that the tool that also captures the origin or the integrity, right, should also be um, the application or the system should also be well trusted and and the quality is also high, right? The another thing is you can say digital signatures, right? So when you digitally sign your files and messages, right? You sign in with your private key. Others check with your public key. For the private public key, we can discuss this further some other time. But basically, private key is something other people won't know, right? Um, it's it's something that when you send over the internet, people don't know what's the correct value of the private key. Whereas in public key, it's basically a fingerprint that you can just show to everyone, right? So next is you validate signatures from others. Check with their public key, right? Don't worry. We'll be mentioning these private public key, and again, we can mention more about it. So again, just so you know, even your computer can generate this digital signature so that it basically adds a proof of origin, right? Some applications, for example, GitHub, right? An online code repository, right? So GitHub as well provides a feature where you can only connect if, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen, the correct screen. Okay, so just to head back, this is the one that I was showing a while ago, right? With Alan about non-repudiation. And I mentioned that in non-repudiation, you can basically define it with these three things, okay? And I was now mentioning about the digital signatures, right? And I went to GitHub. GitHub is basically a version control online repository. And if you can see, like when I go to my profile as well, I can go to, where's that settings again? Sorry, settings, I think. And I can add my private public key here, right? I generate that and I place it here so that GitHub would know when it's coming from my laptop, right? That is true. That is coming from my laptop. It's basically a verification. Okay. So when you want to do secure shell, right? Logins. So another example as well, when if you want to connect from, okay, sharing my screen again. Let's say you have, right? And you want to SSH to a, let's say, a server, right? Before you can SSH to a server, you must set up your keys, right? Just an example, the keys are already set up, but just hold on. I'll show something here. So for example, okay, let's say I want to SSH to this server, right? The server name is this Ubuntu, right? It also requires me a key that I have, right? And also before that, setting the fingerprints. And this allows me to connect to this server, right? This is already another computer that I connected to using the terminal, right? This is similar to remote desktop connection, where you basically connect to the desktop and you see a graphical user environment or interface, sorry, right? So in creating your fingerprints, let's move out from here. Let me see if I can remember this. Uh, mm, let's see, applications, users, let's do, I can do a quick search. Okay. Okay, it should be on users. Sorry, it should be here. And okay. And let's say RSA. So in your Mac OS as well, you can basically, Let me remove this terminate. So, okay. So let me clear what I've done, right? So in your machine as well, you can basically create a new key, right? Let's head back first. Make this bigger, right? Creating a new key, you basically hit this generator, right? And if I press enter, right, it will generate a public and private RSA key pair. Again, if you're using Mac OS or Linux, you just execute this command, it will create a new one, right? So for now, it says enter a file in which to save the key. I'll just press enter as a default. It says overwrite. Maybe no. So what I'll do instead is create a dummy RSA. And it also creates me a fingerprint, right, to show the randomness. This fingerprint doesn't really help the computer. It just helps me to check if it really is a random one. So I can do again, right? By checking the image alone, I can already tell that it's random, right? So this is basically creating your public and private keys, right? So to access that on your home, which is users slash your username, right? You can just go to .ssh and you would see the ID RSA, right? So ID RSA pub. This is the public key, right? If you see this, this is basically the same one that I've added in my GitHub, right? Firehose Vagrant, it has a name as well. And let's see if I can see my private key. And this is my private key. Okay, heading back to the browser. Where's that? This one. Double check. Yep. So this is basically my uh, public key that I associated with this web app, right? Okay, so that was a segue. So from the Jiangyu, uh, Oregon, I don't quite understand the knowledge about intellectual property theft. Why is it that after the intellectual property rights are plagiarized by others, the maps of oil and gas reserves are drawn by computer, and the bidding and operations of multiple oil and gas fields are carried out without financing information? So I did not quite understand as well, like the sentence. So you're free to put in the chat to explain it further, and but I'll try to understand. So you're saying maps and oil are drawn by computer. Yes, feeding and operations of multiple oil and gas fields are carried out without financing information. This one, I'm not quite sure. It looks like there are two topics that are being discussed. Next is I could not understand why a cyber attack might cost somebody's life. To quickly answer that, if you basically attack like a emergency services or the hospital, right? That's basically using devices to keep people alive, then a lot of people would die, right? Um, Also, I'll give you another example. If you basically, um, let's say you hack into the police system, and right, and you basically change the image of a murder suspect, to maybe to one of your enemies who's not really a bad guy, but you just hate that person. And the police might basically go and hunt him down, either kill or put him to jail, right? So that's another thing, another way that could cost somebody's life. Um, what do they do? Which way do they do to lead this result happen? Which way do they do? So in what way? I think what you're trying to say is what is the method they use, right? Again, a lot of things, right? You could hack to the IoT device or to the medical devices, to the pacemaker, um, right? And I think resources are ordinary things. Why do hacker want to attack the system which connect with them? Because why do hackers want to attack system which connect with them? Well, again, the only way you can attack a system, you really need to first make a connection, right? Because think of attacking the system as when you're asking help from somebody and you're doing a screen share or maybe a remote desktop connection, right? It's almost similar to that, right? You have a connection first. Then, if you're the hacker, what you're hoping is they don't notice that you're inside, right? Next from Tin Long. I think the topic of rogue update attacks is very interesting. When you upgrade the update program, you are infected with malware. Does that mean that the software cannot be updated? How to tell if downloaded malware is malicious? So the first to answer the first is if there is a rogue update attack, definitely don't update your software. That's a good first action. And next, the question is how to tell if the downloaded malware is malicious. Um, there's no other way but to really Google first, right? To Google and check if the next version is really the correct update that you're trying to do, right? And in general, even though, let's say, you don't suspect that it's a malware, because if I'm a hacker, right, or a bad guy, I can force update something even though it's not a malware, but it could still destroy. Again, let's go back to the example of, let's say, in energy grid, right? If the energy grid, let's say, is using a Windows 95, right? If I rogue forced update that to Windows 10, the computer will definitely crash, even though it's not really malicious, right? So there's still two ways to bring the uh, computer down or the system down, right? To malicious updates or just upgrading it to a version it's not compatible, right? Again, very, very old computers cannot run the latest software, right? So this is a caution to students as well that whenever you upgrade, always check if your hardware is compatible. Not only that, like for me, I experienced many times where I just updated my operating system and then my gaming app is no longer compatible or my music production app is no longer compatible. So be very careful with just updating. Okay, so um, let's take a quick 15-minute break and let's be back after 15 minutes and continue on the lecture. Okay, I expect everyone to be back now in class so we can proceed. So we've mentioned there are three things a hacker needs, which is the motive, the means, and the methods, right? And you would see different motives and means and methods for different types of attackers. And these are the list of attackers. Okay, so we'll go uh, check on them one by one. So script kiddies. So this is what I mentioned the other day, right? Where the script is basically you just run a script. You don't really build the script, right? And kiddies as a notion to meaning it pertains to being a beginner. Okay, they are generally relatively inexperienced in computing and cybersecurity matters and are on a learning curve, meaning they're still learning, right? This will typically involve downloading free malware, right? They just go to the internet and search maybe through Google or Baidu, right? And start attacking soft targets, meaning soft targets, easy targets, and also uh, if you get caught, you may not get to be jail time, right? And again, less chance of causing damage or being caught. Hacktivists, um, you can think about like political activists, right? So those who protest and maybe some of them who go on riots, right? In this case, these are hackers, right? They sit behind a computer, right? So they support, right? It could be positive or negative. It could be because they're trying to help uh, again remove the injustice, right? When we say injustice, basically there's no justice, right? Causes political, religious, and civil liberties, right? Again, some people doesn't like too much censorship as well. Um, some people hate religions wherein the religions are um, in bad faith. When I say in bad faith, they're not really for the good of humans, right? Some um, political policies or some political persons are also bad and they try to expose, right? It's usually attacking a major corporation whom they feel has caused them some injury, some injustice. So this could also maybe a hacktivist exposing a company doing, let's say, illegal trading or maybe dumping of chemicals, right? Exposing those records. Uh, Another one is try to save planet from destruction by humanity. So hacktivists generally do not attack individuals. They target websites to the face and think of graffiti. So graffiti are those illegal drawings in the streets, right? And instead of the streets or building, you do that to the website. Utilize vulnerabilities in websites. Lone Wolf, similar to the script kiddie, generally participate in minor crimes and hacktivism, generally motivated by notoriety and inquisitiveness. So think of it the script kiddie who now has some knowledge, right? And started going towards small crimes, right? Investigative journalists are journalists with honorable intentions. They want to expose the truth, right? But may resort to hacking and deception to achieve their goals, right? If you think about this, let's say you do know a certain organization or a government is doing bad things, right? But if you obtain it through illegal means, that's also bad, right? So next is it's saying that some such activity has been hacking into the voice mailboxes of celebrities, right? Politicians and members of the UK royal family deemed illegal interception. And again, so let's say you recorded a voice of, let's say, uh, two politicians talking about a something bad, right? And you recorded that through illegal means. So you can definitely expose them to the public, which is illegal, right? And another problem this they that the problem that they can have is because the audio recording was obtained illegally, so it might not be admissible to the court. When I say admissible, the court would say we don't accept that evidence because that is obtained through illegal means. Minor criminal hackers, typically individuals or small groups, generally motivated by financial or information theft. So becoming a big one, which is a bigger one, is an organized criminal hackers. Groups generally motivated by financial gain only, commits acts of threat, perform cyber attacks on behalf of others, claim responsibilities for attacks, create massive scams. So again, for example, like the anonymous, right? The hackers, they are basically organized hackers. Um, you could consider them criminal because again, they are doing things illegally. They're more like a hacktivist, right? The scary one is the terrorist hacker, right? Uh, Basically, they are from other nation states, from other countries, and for sure, the cyber attacks will be for political. It could be that they um, let's say they hijack the political election, do targeted ads on social media, right? So that part is scary. Cyber attacks for theft or financial gain as well, and cyber attacks on critical infrastructure to put some damage on the other country. Okay. Okay. Hackers in general are not criminals, right? Uh, Again, it was just the use of word with bad stuff that it became bad, right? Hacking in general is not really bad in terms of the word, right? So just because this is a word where even American people, when they say hackers, they think bad right away. But we've been trying to say that hacking is not bad. A quick example, like life hacks, right? When we say life hacks, these are not really bad or evil, right? Um, and just hold on, let me see. Right, these are not really bad or evil. So let's say life hack for plugging it correctly, life hack for a lot of things, right? So hack itself is not really bad. Another example, like in the US and I believe in other countries as well, it is very popular to call things hackathon, right? In a hackathon, it's basically um, usually it's a weekend event where people, right, usually tech people, uh, go and participate and create apps, right? So here's an example hackathon, brainstorm, development, programming, timing, teamwork, and goal. So it's basically um, giving a space for people to create ideas, right? Hackathons, like organizations sponsor this as well. Let's say a organization wants some fresh ideas, they can just say they can just organize a hackathon and learn from people using their applications. So I've given you two examples already of the word hack. That hack is not really bad, but it's just that whenever we hear hacking in TV series or movies, we think about it as bad right away. So we tend to associate negatively on the word hacker. Okay, so just so you know, even people in America are also confused with the word hacker or hack in general. So hackers are not criminals. Hackers are computer enthusiasts who like to test and this is manipulate computer for research and curiosity. Okay, we can skip this group exercise. Let's see, do we skip? Yeah, we can skip this. So insiders, unfortunately, information security professionals have to be wary of inside threats as well. Many employees unintentional cause cyber incidents, right? And others are more deliberate acts. When deliberate meaning intentional, um, in which an insider steals information or commits fraud, right? Um, so the second bullet point, unintentional, could be the employee is careless, right? Clicks spam mails, clicks phishing mail, right? Or maybe they are not trained or educated, right, for cybersecurity awareness. Okay, and also you would think that well, the threat for external, meaning the hackers, right, coming from the outside, is very dangerous. Yes, they are, but data shows that insider threats, right, attacks coming from the inside of the organization are way more costlier. What do I mean by that? So the chances of the insider threat is low, but usually the damage that they cause is big, usually bigger than the external threat. Because again, one of the things that they have is they have access already inside, right, to the company. Okay, and I can quickly show you images to show that. So so even the percentage, I was saying to you that to you guys that it is smaller, right? However, even though it's small, it's a big ouch, right? So here, look, some of the charts. So the damage being done is really big, right? $1.6 million, right? And the percentage that companies suffer is actually becoming bigger, right? Okay, so this is a infographic, right? That it shows you 85% of cases, fraudster displayed at least one behavioral red flag. What do we mean by that? So if the company does a good job to monitor and check employees, right, on their well-being, their status in life, and their interactions in the company, you can basically have red flags so you can deal with them properly to avoid, right? So what are the six behavioral red flags, right? One is living beyond means, meaning they are poor, right? Um, or sorry, that is financial difficulties. When living beyond means, meaning is they are not necessarily poor. They do have money, but they spend a lot, right? More than what they have. An example. Let's say I'm just an average worker. but you see me driving a Porsche or Ferrari, right? That is living beyond means. Financial difficulties, we already know it could be they're poor, it could be they're not. Uh, let's say they have many responsibilities for their families, right? Next is unusually close association with vendor or customer. This is again like under the table transactions, meaning handshakes, right? Uh, it could be that the vendor would give them gifts, right? Or money, maybe bribe, and now they're closer than ever, right? Next is control issues, unwillingness to share duties. So, time and time again, this has been popping up, right? If you see an employee or maybe a manager as well that doesn't want to leave her work, right? Doesn't go on vacation or sometimes is afraid to go vacation, uh, it could be one of the potential red flag is they're likely hiding something, right? Maybe they're hiding that they've stolen information, right? Stolen money through digital wire transfer, right? Maybe they're trying to fake the reports, right? Next is divorce or family problems. It's somewhat similar to the financial difficulties, right? And last one is the wheeler dealer attitude. And the wheeler dealer attitude is you disapprove of the way they try to succeed or to get what they want, right? Often by dishonest or unfair methods. It means I want to advance in the organization, right? And I would do it through whatever means, whether it's good or bad. Okay, that's the wheeler dealer method. Okay, so an example of a news contract programmer faces 10 years in jail for inserting a logic bomb into a spreadsheet that caused the company to keep rehiring him. So, first, contract programmer, it means the programmer is not a full time employee, right? Meaning maybe he just have 3 months contract and then he has to leave the company and apply again, right? So next word here is logic bomb. A logic bomb is basically when you put a malware or a bad program, right? Um, it doesn't blow up right away, right? It doesn't execute right away, and it could need a certain logic, right? Any logic. So an example could be when I put this malware, please activate after 30 days or activate after 3 months. So that's a logic bomb, right? So what he essentially did is that malware is basically to his advantage so that the system keeps picking him to be hired as a contract programmer. Right? Okay. Um, no need for this. We had a writing exercise. So for motives, we do have financial gain. You already know that. There's ransom, theft, and fraud, right? So ransom, if you already know, usually when you kidnap a person, right, you ask for a ransom. Usually money, big sums of money, right? Ransomware is basically similar to that. What ransomware can do is they can maybe lock your system, right? Or maybe lock your system and you have to pay them for them to unlock your own system. Another way is they can basically do a ransomware and say they're gonna release your information if you don't pay them up, right? Okay, so the question is Once you got attacked by a ransomware, do you pay or not? Right? Um, if you're one of the things you can do is basically contact the police, right? Or the detectives, investigators. But again, some people choose to pay. Why do they pay? Right? Because uh, for the ransomware, it is a small chance that they won't fulfill their obligation, right? So if you pay them, it's most likely that they're gonna stay true to their words, meaning they're gonna unlock your system, they're not gonna release your information publicly, and you're asking why? Are they good people? No, they're thinking about the effectiveness of the ransomware. How? So what if, let's say, one of the students here, I put a ransomware, right? I attack Zio, right? What if he paid me and I didn't give him his information back? And let's say I started to attack Charles, right? Now, do you think Charles would pay me knowing that I didn't stay true to my word? No, right? So if I'm a hacker, when I do ransomware, let's say again I attack Zio, he paid me money, and I say, okay, I'll not release your information. Now, when I attack Charles and he learned that Zio had the same thing, but the hacker stayed true to his word, right? So Charles would likely pay me, the hacker, right? So that's one of their mindset on why when you pay them, it is most likely they'll stay true to their word, meaning they would, uh, complete their promise. Okay, theft. Theft is stealing financial information, then spending or taking the money. Pretty easy. Fraud. People willingly give money due to deception, right? Um, a lot of things, like as simple as in the real world, you can, let's say, pose as a beggar, but you're not really poor. um, I believe they are called professional beggars, right? Let's say they go to the street, look like a beggar, they get money, but after the day they change their clothes, they look normal, they have money, they have car. So think of the fraud like that and put that in cyberspace, right? Revenge, revenge, revenge. Some cyber attacks are carried out in response to an action. Okay? So attacker perceives that they have suffered some injury, deprivation, or harm from action that decides that a cyber reprisal is appropriate, right? So when they say deprivation, it means that they maybe receive less on something, right? Let's say they should have gotten the promotion, or maybe they should have gotten more money, but they didn't. So they did this as revenge, right? Cyber reprisal is just another word to say to get back at someone, right? Or like a counterattack. Espionage, think of spy films, right? Commercial or military types. Surveillance to gain some sort of advantage. Intellectual property theft. Theft of IP covers many areas. We already have mentioned these, so we can move on. So the means, right? Means again the tools, right? Again, not only the tools, but you also need the domain knowledge, right? We have Kali Linux, John the Ripper, Nmap, Aircrack, Wireshark, Nessus, and Metasploit, right? So Kali Linux, that's in your hands-on practice. Wireshark looks something like this. right? So Wireshark is basically an application where you can monitor network traffic, right? If you've done network classes, you can basically understand what this is doing, right? The OSI model, the 7 layers, like the application layer, the data link layer, like the network layer, right? And knowing which protocol they are using, knowing the packets, right? So for me, I can monitor my Wi-Fi or my internet usage as well, right? It shows me the source IP and destination IP, and also shows me what protocol I'm using, UDP or TCP. Okay, if I wanna, let's say, filter to only HTTP requests or downloads, right? I can basically go to my Google, right? I can't share two screens for now, but I would just, let's say, what's this? If I go to a website, actually, you should be able to see this, right? When I download the HTML. Now you saw that I requested for this HTML file, right? And that's the HTTP protocol and the IP address. Okay, there's a lot of things you can do with this packet sniffer called Wireshark, right? And if we head back quickly to the Chrome desktop, so this website that I accessed, right, which is you can see on the top, it's an HTML file. So that's Wireshark and Kali Linux. We already mentioned Metasploit is part of Kali Linux. Just a good to know, Metasploit is one of the popular tools, and it will look like this, right? I'll quickly show you an example, right? So it looks like it's just in the terminal as well. It looks like I can't zoom properly, right? Okay. So Metasploit is basically gives you a lot of tools to do some damage or hacking. Okay. Uh, it will give you the access to choose which operating system, which type of attack you want to do, right? Okay. Yeah, so here's an example. Let's see. Yep. You can also check which incognito or not incognito type in the browser. It also had a graphical user interface if you want that instead, right? So you can basically choose the host that you're connected with, check the vulnerabilities, right? And just clicking it. And head back. Okay, let's see. Quick time check. Hold on. Okay, looks like it's a good time to do some concept tests. Yep, let's do some concept tests. Okay, hold on. Course content. Nope, not this one. So for our concept test today, so we'll have 50 minutes to have this answered. And let's also put a group voting. Hey, so let's give some time. Um, do this for 15 minutes and let's do a 15-minute break. So I expect by 10:30, right? Everyone should be finished. So use 15 minutes for concept test and then go and do your break for 15 minutes and we'll be back at 10:30. Okay? So from Thomas, uh, so for Thomas, four options are the risk assessment to deal with it. We can manage and deal with risk. Okay, sure. Next is Alan, consulting only business impact situations. Right. E again, and knowing that the loss of consequences of a problem are still to be done, it's not going to solve the problem, and it will cause inevitable losses. Mm, defense mechanism, not a safety management for Randy. Um, uh, divided into four parts: assess effectiveness, assess risk, important decisions to support. Consulting business only plays a verbal analysis. Not really. Not a practical operation. This one is good from Chris. It's saying it is not comprehensive. Okay. Mm. So Ralph and Porygon has the same answer. No, okay. So it's four options. Okay. Let's solve the business impact. Okay. So this one from Joe, he says that A belongs to one of the four parts of risk management. B as well, C as well, and D belongs to three. Only E did not meet any of the four major parts. Hmm. Okay, so we can go back to the where's this one? So the answer is letter E. Um, again, if you want to quickly check how the answer without even going deeper, one, it's asking overall, and which is not overall, right? And if you're checking keywords, this is saying only. So, and only again, right? So only is not overall. So you can now at least lean forward to letter E and saying that this is not overall, right? Okay, so good job. I think most got letter E. Let's see the vote. I think everyone got an E. It's good. Question is very easy, I guess. Okay, let's now head back to the lecture. So, stages of an attack. So, before we discuss the stages of attack, do remember if any one of you becomes a cybersecurity professional, right? There would be a lot of times that you would be writing, right? So you would need to also write and specify the methods of attack that you have done, right? Um, let's see. Can I? We can discuss first, and let's see if I can grab an example. So the very first stage is reconnaissance, right? The attacker will um, recon. No, I think this is also a okay. Reconnoit. It's such a weird word. There might be a better word, right? Reconnoiter, right? Okay. So the first stage, the attacker will reconnoiter the target's networks and system, looking for known vulnerabilities that can be exploited as a means of entry, right? It will check the system, right? Check for easy access points, right? Safe access points. Next is preparation, also called weaponization. So once the target system has been surveyed and the detailed objectives are understood, the attacker will prepare the software tools required to achieve them. So basically, if you first do the reconnaissance and you know that oh, it's a Mac operating system, then one of the preparation you would need is, let's say, a tool that can attack a Mac operating system. Delivery: the attacker will now upload the tools onto the target or systems or to a targeted users, right? Checking that they are hidden from both normal view and from detection by more sophisticated means, right? So if they've done a good job with reconnaissance, this should already be part of their plan where they can basically upload the tools to the target system, right? So that they can start messing around with it, right? Next is exploitation, right? In exploitation, the attacker needs to be certain that the final attack will be successful. So a known vulnerability on the target system will be exploited in order to execute the malware. Okay. Installation will be having gained access to the target system or systems, the attacker will now install the malware. And again, even though most of it is cyber, you can also do this physically where you access the server room and insert a USB. Next is command and control. Having verified that the tools will work as expected, the actual attack can be executed, right, which is command, by possibly choosing the most appropriate moment. For example, when many of the security support staff are not at work, right, we're staging a major diversion which will draw attention away from the real attack. Maybe pulling the fire alarm, right? When you pull the fire alarm, and that that already creates you a very good diversion. Okay, let's see. Next, actions on objectives. This one is that attacker can begin the real work with maybe to harvest user credential information, meaning to get the user information, right? Then they try to escalate privileges so that they can gain access to systems. When we say escalate privileges, it means that from a normal user, right, without having access to uh, secret or top level files, or maybe that requires root access or admin access, you now place yourself as an admin. That is escalating, right, going up, so that they can gain to systems currently out of reach to exfiltrate, right, other data, or simply modify and delete. Okay, so as I mentioned a while ago, that when you're doing an attack or maybe a testing, right, create a report. So an example would that be, this is when I was a student, right? So we do have virtual environments to play around with. And one of the things we do as well is create reports. Sorry, zoom maybe 200. Is that better? So you'd want to create steps as well, right? So like in my summary, I would say phase one reconnaissance, right? And this is the what we have checked, that these are the servers, these are the Metasploit, the firewall, sense is another firewall, and the attack machine using Kali, right? And so once you know that, another phase could be scanning. You check, let's say, which ports are open, right? And use a specific tool like the Nmap to check the port, launch a database service to in the Metasploit framework, right? To access the database, right? Next is you try to gain access. And again, depending on the labs, but usually you want to maintain access as well in that database. And then once you're done, you should cover your tracks, meaning you should delete any logs that were created when you were moving around the network. So let's head back. Let's go back to the slides. So now cyber attacks and attack vectors, right? These are dark patterns. We already mentioned about this. Is fooling people that they're making a choice or selection that they might not normally make. So there are different ways. The bait and switch technique, right? This is an example is you are wanting to, let's say, access cute cat photos, but then they give you something else when you click on that, right? Disguised advertisement. Again, it's the wrong advertisement. It looks like it's for you, but it's not really. Enforced subscription. You didn't know you end up subscribing to an email, and maybe you end up paying for a subscription. Friend spam. Again, you getting spam with maybe friend requests, right? I think this happens when before, when you have social media and let's say it says, okay, you're playing this game, auto invite all friends, which is bad. Hidden cost, you did not know there were extra costs for that. Misdirection is a more generic term. Roadblocks and basket extras, I think they're gonna be explained as well here, which is not. So, roadblock is basically stopping your um, points of access, right? Basket extras is basically adding layers, right? Again, extra baskets, meaning you add layers, um, but really, there's not really a help with those extra layers, right? Let's see. I think I have a bait and switch. Let's see, bait and switch. Okay, so there's a funny meme actually about bait and switch. The very easiest explanation for that as well is, let's say you're trying to feed your child or maybe your dog like a pizza, I mean, vegetable that they hate, right? You can basically use your other hand to basically show pizza. And once they open their mouth, you basically use your other hand to feed them with the vegetable. So bait and switch. Okay, other attack vectors are application layer attacks. Takes place when firewall ports are left open for an attacker to use as a means of entry. I think lesson one, I've showed you the inbound and outbound rules for a firewall. If you let that open to everyone, anyone can just access it. Botnet, we've used this term over and over again, so we can move on. Brute force attack. So, brute force attack is basically doing any means possible to attack a system, right? If you are a coder or developer as well, you also know the like brute force solutions, right? Meaning just solve the problem. And in this case, you just attack the system in whatever way you can. Okay, even though it's not efficient. Next is the buffer overflow attacks. So it means that you are um, rendering the service down by basically putting more input that it can handle. Example. So let's say your small computer can only take 100 requests, right? And it started putting more than that, right? I guess a better example would be, um, let's go more for code because that's a better example. So, for example, Java buffer overflow, right? So in some programming language, right, they can only have, let's say, in your arrays, right, in your data structure, let's say you only have the length of 8, which is 0 to 7, and you started inserting more than that, and that's a buffer flow um, example, right, or issue. So it's more than the intended capacity, right, of the design. And this could be just an error, or it could be, error on the developer's part, or it could be it was exploited. Wi-Fi attacks are extremely common, right? You intercept the signal of a wireless access point and introduce rogue access point. Okay, so it means that um, maybe a quick example is, let's say there's a coffee shop, right? Let's say the coffee is named Starbucks, and they always use the name Starbucks Coffee Shop, right? and you started creating your hotspot, meaning in your mobile, you start providing internet access to everyone using the name, device name as Starbucks coffee shop as well, right? That's one of the ways you can fool other people, and then they started clicking on your Wi-Fi name, which is not really the Starbucks Wi-Fi name, and now uh, you're now connected with them, so now you can start attacking that device. Social engineering, uh, many ways. Again, in the films, we already seen this. Another skill is sweet talking, right? The user pretending to be trying to help. Sweet talking, such as maybe flirting or being kind, right? Or being just helpful, right? Being a good human being, but not really. Okay, skip this. Skip this. Okay, good. We finished this up, so let's move on to the muddiest point, and maybe we'll show you some Linux commands. Where did we stop lately? Maybe here? I think, or around here. Okay, from you on. Let's see. Okay, this is a good summary of what we've discussed, such as script kiddies to national military secrets, rogue updates, dark patterns. Good summary. From Randy, we learned a little bit of crawling. Crawling, when the teacher told us about Python crawling, the teacher said that some websites have anti-crawling mechanism. I wonder if some websites will have anti-hacking mechanism. Right? So you can basically create Python scripts to scrape or do a web crawl and then scrape data, right? Um, and anti-crawling mechanism maybe providing timeouts or maybe providing the script harder time to locate each field or data, right? So I wonder if some websites have anti-hacking mechanism. For sure. One of the ways is doing an HTTPS, right? Also, anti-hacking as well. Let's say someone is trying to do credential stuffing or dictionary attack, where let's say I have all the user names and passwords of students and I try to access it. My website, what I can do, I can say that you can only log in 3 times and you get lockout, right? Or you get to wait 15 minutes. So that's a prevention. Another anti-hacking is making sure that you log the suspicious interaction or transactions in your website or system. Okay, from Katie, I think this is me. Maybe I just pasted it wrong, so that's on me. Um, from Green, if criminals take advantage of the fact that people want to download these tools to prevent hackers, hiding viruses in these so-called tools will create more network security problems. With that in mind, is it necessary to download these tools? Criminals want to... Yes, so you're correct. So, especially back in the days, it is so rampant, meaning it is so many that you would see, okay, download this antivirus software. But in reality, that antivirus software is also giving you virus and malwares, right? So again, you have to be careful, right? Some people don't really download antivirus and they just rely on the operating system updates. Some do. It's also fine, but as long as you use a trusted antivirus software. Next is from Ralph. Any individual or organization can be attacked and most likely has been attacked. but many times they don't know. True, very true. A lot of companies they won't even know that they're being attacked. Also, when I research about this, it is interesting. Like in the U.S., for example, there are data breaches. They are not required to report right away. I'll take a quick example. Let's say Washington data breach notification law, right? So per state, right, in the US, meaning per location in the United States, right? If a company experience a data breach, they don't need to notify everyone right away. And again, it depends on the location, right? Here is an example, right? So the individual or business is required Washington to notify everyone basically if if 500 residents of Washington's were breached, right? So it's kind of funny that if only 400 residents were breached, they don't really require to notify, right? And again, this varies from location to location. So let's quickly check how about California. Let's see. It's also 500. So I guess this one is the same. Let's check one more. Let's say Illinois. Mm, this is a harder to read text. Um, yeah, it's hard to look at this one. So we'll skip that part. But you get the point that they are not really required to notify the public right away. Okay. Next is how can they be attacked if there's no good measure? They may lose a lot. How can they be attacked? You should try to rephrase this because how can they be attacked? The attackers may be people. Why is there no good measure to catch them and let them go on like this? Again, they are people, true, but again, they use bots, computer. They try to hide their location, even their internet location, right? The IP address. And so it's really hard, right? It's really hard. From Thomas, investigative journalists usually use methods that touch the law to investigate information they want, but it's hard for the police to catch them. Why don't people set up a counter investigation team to stop these people? Well, usually most government already have a cyber team, and they do try to counter these people, right? Then again, like some people think of it this way, right? That's why it's always insider as well, an insider threat. Let's say you work for a company, and that company is, let's say, selling illegal drugs, right? Or maybe half of the product is illegal, half of it is not. It's trying to do both good thing and bad thing. You are get to be paid a lot, so you think it's fine. But after a while, maybe you feel bad that, hey, they're doing wrong and I don't want to be part of this anymore, right? And that's the time usually they go against the company or organization. They can maybe leak the information, or sometimes maybe there's an investigative journalist waiting for that information, right? So because it is so human, right? A human can also flip sides anytime, and that's a big problem, right? Next is from Bill. What can hackers gain if they attack hospital? Since hospital has been the target of hacker attacks, Lives of patients are affected by the problems of the hospital information network, right? So first, to answer the first question, what do they gain? Again, different motives. If they steal a lot of health information data, they can basically sell that to pharmaceutical companies or in the black market in the dark web, right? So they can get money. Another motive could be they just want to create chaos, right? Another motive could be revenge. Maybe that hospital or that person encountered a medical staff that was not nice, right? So it could be many motives. As for the second question, is it the hospital's fault or the hospital has been hacked? Um, I guess the question should be: is it the hospital's fault or not that the hospital has been was hacked, right? So it would differ, right? If I'll give an example, if the hospital has their own security IT team, right? You can blame all the fault to them for sure, right? But another thing you have to think about is if let's say their internal IT team had followed all the rules and regulation for standard cybersecurity practices, they're not really at fault. Maybe the hacker found a new way. I'll give you another perspective. If let's say the hospital doesn't have its own IT team, right? But instead they hired another company to basically do the cybersecurity, then you can now blame the hospital, but the hospital would blame the cybersecurity uh, organization. Again, the partnership, right? So several ways. Maybe I pasted a wrong name. Apologies. I don't know who. Um, there are a few explanations about transportation. Okay. Railway, passenger, freight transportation. Under what circumstances will hacker launch attacks on these transportation modes? And what is their purpose? I would believe that uh, one is it's harder to hack maybe transportation modes. And two, a reason could be if they do it, they want to do it with enough damage, right? Remember the reconnaissance part? It that part can also take a long time and maybe wait for the right time to cause chaos in many ways, right? Let's say they might hack the transportation while hacking the health system, right? All at the same time. So from J, firewalls scan network traffic through it, which filters out attack that might be executed on the target computer. I want to know what else can protect the computer besides the firewall. Okay. So another way you can use is basically a certificates, right? Or a client side authentication, right? So in this case, if you uh, have the usual is usually the client, your computer, your browser, you directly access the server, right? Which is not secure. To make that secure, right, your server, you'd want the browser to request. Yes, it requests first the server, but instead of a public resource, it's a protected resource, right? So the server doesn't give the resource right away. It could be the client was requesting for user data, and the server says, okay, before I give you my user data, please present a certificate, right? The client will now go to a different server, which was specified. Let's say it goes to a certificate authority and checks for the certificate, right? Um, Once it has the certificate, it will present that to the server, right? The server now uses the certificate of the client to check against the certificate authority. So you're seeing now there's a third party to check, right? And then now, once the server verified that it's a valid certificate, it will now allow access to protected resource, right? It's the same thing as, I'll give you another example. Let's say you have an ID, right? Let's say I have an ID, right? And my ID is a driver's license. Let's say I give my ID to Sophia. And Sophia, let's say she doesn't really know if the driver's license is true or not, right? There might be ways, but still not 100%. The best way to go is go to maybe the licensing department, right? Or someone who knows how to verify, like an organization. Then maybe Sophia can pass this ID to that and they do the check if it's real or not. Then, if yes, then now Sophia can basically do transactions with me or believe what I'm saying. Okay. So, certificates, you should be able to see that in websites. So, let's see. Uh, Here, um, I don't know if that's being shown, but I can check the. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's not being shown. So I can basically screenshot and screenshot again and send those files over to the chat. So, or no, not even the chat. I can show that here. So I don't think it was shared. So, so a quick example is if I go to the top right side, left hand side, right, there's a lock icon. If I click that and then click certificate, I should be able to check if it's valid, right? And in this case, the certificate was from DigiCert Cloud Services, and it says this certificate is valid, right? So that's the certificate authority. Okay. Next, um, oh, that's a repeat. Sorry. When I was in high school, my school had blackmailed virus. Oh, that's so bad. So this is part of the ransomware, and but I don't understand. Okay, so just a quick comment. So when you're trying to do two topics, make sure you add some words to say on a different topic, or because if it's not related at all, right? Why civil nuclear reaction is the target. There are two cases of nuclear reaction accidents in the world, and none of them is due to network attacks. So with, I know this is outside of the topic, right, in cybersecurity, but in terms of nuclear reaction accidents, um, most of them are not really due to. I think there's it's not really due to attacks. It's just accidents, right? And even those accidents are really rare, right? But because people, the public, had the fear of nuclear reaction accidents, right? Now a lot of people doesn't want nuclear power, but in essence, in today's generation, the nuclear technology right now is super safe, right? Okay, so and none of them is due to network attacks. Yes, and what's more, it's not in the interest of hackers that they will attack and they will become a public enemy all over the world. Yes, that could happen if a someone or a country would attack and it would cause a lot of damage. Definitely, it would. Um, a lot of other countries would retaliate or um, basically counter or revenge. So from Helekwo, risk management refers to how to minimize the adverse effects of risk in project or enterprise environment. Risk management is very important for modern enterprises. What points do I need to grasp when identifying security vulnerabilities? The easiest way to start is just checking first what is your system information, right? What is the version that you're using, the other dependencies for your operating system, right? And once you know that, you can start searching in the internet as well, right? What are the security vulnerabilities? So in my case, maybe I can check first what is my, I'll first check my version. And it says, let's see, vulnerabilities on Mac OS Catalina, right? And you can search in websites as well that these are some of the security problems. See, we're getting ads, right? And just read them over, right? And also, there's a lot of podcasts, right? Podcasts is where you listen, right? Maybe vulnerability that would get you started. Not this one, cybersecurity. It's called cybersecurity. So listening to podcasts to keep you up to date, right? Darknet Diaries. I don't know if you guys have access to this link, but this is a very, very cool podcast. Um, Maybe I'll just drop that in the chat. I hope people can access. Okay. Anyway, going back, and hooray, I think Katie has messaged me. Thank you so much. Where was that? And this is the correct. Okay. Oops, that's beginning. Sorry. Current slide. So just going back to Katie. So at the end, it says, "Are these wiretaps also espionage?" Yes, you can consider that, right? Also, be very careful because wiretapping is really illegal. Um, so sometimes, even though you're just recording, let's say the meeting of, let's say, your client, right? And some laws would basically say you can't even record your client's conversation unless they give consent. Okay, let's read more Muddiest Point. Whether my thoughts is, so there should be an S here. My thoughts are whether is it necessary to restrict the circulation of these technologies that can be stolen from the internet. Hmm. Modern society is highly dependent on the internet and will continue to grow. In this case, is it inappropriate to allow this technology to circulate? You mean to say these technologies, because you said these technologies, to circulate. Although this is harmful to freedom and the development of this field, if the unlocking technology is low, it means that very sophisticated protection is not required. Mm, the unlocking technology is low. This gave me an idea. Okay, so open source software, right? So what they're saying is open source software is very secure, right? One of the reason why is because the source code is open. You would think that um, when the source code is open, people can just exploit, right? So that's a yes and no, right? Yes, it can be exploited. No, as well, because the theory is there are many eyes on the code, right? There are many people looking at the code in such a way that uh, the bugs and flaws, sorry, the bugs and ah, the bugs and flaws are spotted and fixed quickly, right? I think my mouth is drying. That's why. Yep. So because in open source, there's a lot of uh, developers who are maintaining it. So they are bound to find those vulnerabilities and fix them right away. Okay. Again, you can still argue that, well, I see their code, right? So heading back, see. So seven stages of cyber kill chain of Lockheed Martins, which is uh, a defense company in the US. So it's just this seven, sorry. We already mentioned this. So these are the steps: reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control actions on objectives, right? There are also other steps, but they generally follow most of these, right? You survey, you check, you prepare, you attack, right? After you attack, you control, you maintain. After you're done, you basically delete all your traces. What is the reason for so many hackers in life, which is leading to so many cyber threats? Aside from all the motives, another thing that I would add, because again, with the computer and the internet, it is so easy to do, right? I'll give you a perfect example. Before, bullying is hard to do, but bullying in the internet is so easy to do. That's why a lot of people do bullying in the internet, right? Because they think that there's this wall or barrier that's protecting them from the outside, that they can just do whatever they want. From Zio, interested part is emergency services. Attacking emergency services is clearly a possible part of a premeditated hacker plan. True, right? So he may be able to increase his chances of attacking the network by attracting attention. Correct. So attracting attention could be causing a commotion, meaning someone is shouting or whatever, or maybe pulling the fire alarm. So those would basically attract attention. From Joffrey, I'm afraid of hacking into the railway system. You should be. Yeah. So I'm afraid of hacking. So instead of I'm afraid of hacking, because it seems like you're the one hacking, right? Hmm. So maybe you said you are afraid of people hacking into the railway system. China is a big railway country. If the railway system is not well guarded, bad guys will have an opportunity and cause serious consequences. True, true, true. Yeah, the bigger the reliance of the people to a certain technology or resource, reliance meaning they're dependent, they need that to as part of their daily lives, the more it is critical to put defenses, right? So from Charles, previous hacking conferences, a technique was demonstrated. This technology hacks into the pacemaker. Yep, cause a large amount of discharge from the pacemaker to stop the patient's heart and die, right? Has been also shown a lot with movies and series as well. What language do criminal needs to master? If you're a script kiddie, not really. Just enter the uh, just run the script. But if you're building your own, definitely you need to learn uh, Linux commands and Bash scripting. You can do some Python as well. So Bash scripting is a programming language that you can use in the terminal, right? So Bash scripting, just so you know, Bash scripting, right? Yeah, I can actually do a quick example. I think I have some Bash scripting here. Hold on. To show you how it looks like. Bash scripts. So, for example, right, this is a script. If you know a programming language, maybe it's somewhat similar as well. This is changing file names from uppercase to lowercase, right? Another way could be git add all master, maybe this one. So this is a script. So instead of um, running the command, typing this 3 times, right? I can just run the script, right? I created a bash script to basically execute these 3 commands, right? Okay, almost there. Whiskey. Is it necessary to pay attention to the safety management of private, residential, and civil Internet of Things user? Is it necessary to add the same level of protection as the military? Yeah, definitely yes, if possible. Um, but then again, not every country has the same amount of resources. That's why some would basically protect themselves on their own, right? Or maybe some would just protect the military and not the citizens, right? Although, and then just going back, right? Even though let's say your military system is very secured, but if your citizens are not secured, again, that could be an entry point, right? So Faye is sharing about cyber attacks, leakage of information, can't be seen to the others by the public. World needs some white. So I like the statement that he said. There are so many bad aspects because sometimes the world needs some white lies, right? I know people would agree or disagree, but as far as my opinion, I would agree as well because um, us humans could only take in a certain amount of like stimulation as well, right? If you overload everyone with bad news, even though it's true, the problem now is humans might get very maybe angry or demoralized, no longer believes in their government, right? Even though let's say it's not the government's fault, right? So yeah, white lies can be helpful for humans and maybe putting in some positive news, right? I want to know that. So just going back, especially that's why you would see in the news. I know in the news, I think they always release like bad news. Really, like something bad is happening, right? I guess it really depends. Okay, I want to know that in this era of more and more emphasis on computing, and more people are learning computers. Is there any secret in the world that cannot be known by a second person? Hmm. Well, if you live in a very, very far away, isolated place, maybe, maybe, just maybe. Linda, it immediately occurred to me that Russia-backed hackers recently tried to break into US state and local computer networks. Although there is no indication that the hackers intended to disrupt any elections or government operations. but I think the actors may have been looking for opportunities to interfere in the future to influence US policies and actions. So, this is one of the things that's happening in the US. A lot of people believe, a lot of people disagree as well. Um, I do somewhat believe it because it is really possible, right? And why is it possible? Because first, for example, Facebook platform, anyone can just put up an advertisement, right? As long as they pay, right? As long as it's not really that bad, right? And make sure that maybe it's a political campaign, right? Social media, the problem with that is it needs to get a lot of engagement from the users. So the users need to use the app all the time, right? If you keep releasing information that is true and boring, no one will use the app, right? And again, these social media apps are has like a lot of machine learning. So the machine learning knows that if they put something out there that is very sensational, maybe fake news, right? Absurd, right? Or something that is wild, right? And something that would anger people, the social media platform will definitely go for it and show that instead of the truth and boring. And now that gets more engagement to the users, right? And now through that engagement, if you can just pay uh, the social media platform to do a very sensationalized political advertisement and just target people, right? Target specific people, right? So there's more to this actually with this. Is that the last? Cool. So actually, the whole issue is coming from here, right? Let's put here. So to summarize what happened, right? So there's this company called Cambridge Analytica in the UK, right? And what happened there is uh, they basically use the Facebook API, right, to do something, to create a simple quiz. And through that simple quiz, if I'm a Facebook user, let's say, oh, it's a fun quiz, I'll do it. And most users didn't know that when they click yes, it allowed them to get the user's information. But not only that, the biggest problem is so all of my friends in my network, their information is also compromised, even though they did not take the quiz. So that was when Facebook was still less secure as well, right? So uh, that allowed Cambridge Analytica to grab a lot of user information, right? A very specific user information to basically target people, right, in a country. And then now Cambridge Analytica can now um, sell that data to political parties, right? And they can do very intrusive, targeted to change people's minds to vote for them, right? So that was very scary because it feels like the service that was providing, instead of being a data aggregator provider, it felt like it's a propaganda service, right? And the scary part is they did not only do this in the US election, they also did this before that in another country, which I actually forgot now, but they did it in another country before doing it in the US, right? So, oh, the Brexit. So, before the US election, there was this called the Brexit where I think what was that? So they are trying to say that One of the UK, right, convinced people to support Brexit, right? So even though a lot of people know that this will be a bad thing, but because they were able to do intrusive advertisement to change what people think, so most of them did vote for the Brexit to make it come through, right? So that is another bad thing that happened, right? So I think Cambridge Analytica is now into the court for sure. Aftermath. Okay, so maybe some of them are still working on other firms, right? Okay, so that's the end of lecture and on to the Kali Linux. Let's see, do I have a Kali Linux open? So, uh, so I hope most of you have already have the Kali Linux installed, right? And I'll just go over some of the HOP2, right? Some of the commands, and maybe do some explanation, right? So one of the commands here that I can do is to add a user, right? So let's say I want to add a user. I would do user add, right? Uh, Maybe without an option to make it simpler. Dash C. Let's say Amanda Walker, a Walker. I would expect an error here. Yes, user add is not found. Let's see, how about this one? So the first time you do a sudo, meaning a super user doer, right, it would ask you if you want to proceed and use the admin privileges, right? Okay, let's see what happened. Okay, so I was able to execute it, right? To explain, so user add is basically a command to add a user, right? Um, Usually you can do a user add, let's say first name initial and last name, right? You can do user add, right? Again, you have to be in admin privileges, right? And now it created. I'll show you later how to look at it, but I am just trying to show you the different ways, right? So the previous way that we do it is we add an option to the command with dash C. With the dash C, you are now able to add a string of characters, maybe put the first name, last name. And then at the end, put the username. Now, you are wondering now where to look at them, right? So to look at them, you basically need to go to etc cls. Oh, maybe it's connected to my Mac, so maybe I won't be able to see it. Let's see. CETC. Okay. CDPW. Okay. So let me repeat what I've done. Okay. So I'm currently at home. How do I know that? With the tilde here. And if I do PWD, it shows me I'm at slash home slash Clark, also known as the home. How do I know? I can also do a dollar sign home, right? And it would say slash home slash Clark is the home, right? It's a directory. So what I did is I move up. Now I'm in the home folder. I move up again, and now I'm in the root folder, right? In the root folder, we do have the etc folder, right? And it has a file called password, right? I know it's a weird name of a file. It's called password because back in the days, These are where usernames and password are also included, right? As you can see, the last two here, right? And let me just make this a little bit more clearer, right? I can do tail. Tail allows me to only show the bottom. Dash n is number of lines, and let's say the last two lines, and then say password. Uh, no password. Okay. So just to explain, right? The first here is the username, right? The second is the X. So this is basically a hash password that it's not showing you for now, right? And these are just the user ID, group ID. The default is whatever your user ID, that's your group ID. And the next is the comment in which we added the first name, last name, right? And the next is the directory of the home for that user. Okay, let's see. So we did not. Yes, we created the user and we did not create a password. So we can do and create a password using the password command, right? You also need to have elevated privileges, meaning admin, right? Let me add the password for this username. Looks like I'm not typing, but it's just hiding it. And that successfully update my password. And again, I still could not see it, right? Because it's hashed. Another thing that we can do is we can delete a user, right? So very easy. You can do sudo user delete and a walker. Oh, sorry, it should be del, right? And if we do the tail again, it's no longer there. Okay, so we can also create a group. So we can do a sudo group add, and let's say I want to have a number, maybe 333, right? And the HPP, or maybe 888 for lucky number, right? And to check whether that group exists, I can just do concatenate to check in the group. And you should see that at the bottom. Let's see. So other simple commands could be, let's go back to the home with cd, clear that up. If we do want to make a directory, we can just do make directory mkdir and the name, let's say shared is the name. And I should see the shared folder now, right? So can use grep to show that. Okay, what if I want to see the permissions, right? So remember, -L would show you the long format, right? But I also want it to be just the shared, so I can just do share. And if, let's say, we want to grab read, write, and execute access to the user, the group, and others, right? I could just do something like sudo chmod 777 share and do this again. And now you would see the letters change, right? And this is using the octal notation, right? So I can also put 666, right? And you would see that it's R, W, and X. Just to clarify, so each letter has a corresponding value. R is 4, right? W is 2, and execute is 1. So when I say 666, give everything read and write access. If I say 777, give everything read, write, and execute access, right? So if I, let's say, do a 664, you now know that only R4 can be done. To verify that, you can just go click this one. And this is at the third digit. So this is in the third sequence. And you can see it's only read. Okay. And there are other ways. So that is called the absolute method. And we do have the symbolic method. So it's just part of the HOP. So do check it out and um, try to look for more commands. And for now, let's see. We can also explore what we have in Kali. Let's see, right? So when you click on Kali, you do have a lot of information here already, right? You can click usual applications, maybe information gathering, Nmap, right? So you can try an example with Nmap, a popular scanning tool. Oops, I killed my screen share. Let's go back there. Where's that? Okay, going back. Uh, hold on. Okay, so let's say nmap dash v dash a scan me dot nmap.org, right? It would start scanning, and it's looking at open port, right? 222. I mean 22 is SSH, right? 80 is HTTP, and so on and so forth. Let's see other things that we have here. Vulnerability analysis, also Nmap, web application, database assessment, password attacks. This is John the Ripper, I think. So once you install the Kali Linux, there's a lot to explore really. So in your own pace and in your own time, right? You can now look at these. Let's go to password. Medusa is another popular one. Even the logo is cool, and it also gives you ways to use it, right? Let's see, sniffing, ethercap, graphical. This is also being used, ethercap, graphical. Let's see, porting, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how the Kali looks like. It's pretty sleek. Love the logo. Has a lot of tools right off the box. And I did forget to answer one of the things. Um, so again, we were asked if we do require to master a programming language. Most of them, you just need to have a working knowledge, meaning you know what's happening. Uh, so if you're a developer, a software developer, you're more of programming language. And if you're in the cybersecurity, you're more into tools, right? You should know what tools to use for the right job, right? The tools to defend, the tools to attack, the tools to defend which specific attacks, right? Or the tools to do an exploit, right, in a certain system. So it's all about knowing which tools to use, right? All right. So I think that should be a overview, right? And that is for the lesson 3 for today. And I would expect people to keep working on the team project, and by the end of today, submit your uh, proposal document, right? So I can give feedback as well. And hopefully everyone already has the Kali Linux hands-on practice, and we can keep doing the HOP to do basic Linux commands because that's very essential, right? And again, looking forward to everyone's muddiest point. Um, Use the remaining time to work into your groups, be in your groups, and talk about your next plan or what you need to write for the proposal. And I'll just be back maybe 2 minutes before we end the class to just check on everyone. All right. Okay. See you guys later.